All right, really quickly we're going to go over learning target 3, and this is just the target to try to see if you can tell the difference between ionic and covalent bonds when you are given some characteristics or that you're given that the elements that are involved. So the very first thing, they're super easy to understand and to remember. The first thing that we're going to look at is what they are. There's two types of bonds. There's ionic and covalent. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the ionic bond. And the one thing that you need to know about the ionic bond is that it's when electrons are taken from the first element and given to the second. So in that case, the easiest example I can think of to give you really quickly is NaCl. NaCl has 1 plus charge. Well, Na has 1 plus charge. Chlorine has a 1 negative charge. If you think about this with Lewis structure, Na has 1 valence electron, and chlorine actually has 7 because it's in the family 17. And so you have this place right here that is needing an electron, and you have this one that has 1 and it just wants to get rid of it. So this one, if it can go over here, which is what it does, and takes that spot, so it goes in there, so this one goes over there, and this one actually drops down an energy level, and this one is the outer energy level is full. So now those two things are bonded together, and this is what makes table salt. So that's really easy. When it loses an electron, it becomes positively charged. When it gains an electron, it becomes negatively charged. So that's where those charges come from that shift in your valence electrons. Now, this always happens, the other thing about ionic bonds, always happens between a metal and a non-metal. We don't normally think of sodium because we think of sodium as being salt, but sodium itself is a metal. It's in family 1, and chlorine is in family 17, and it's a non-metal. It's actually a gas. So those two things right there, and this is really the key for when you're looking to see if it's going to be ionic or a covalent bond. You're going to look at the two elements that are bonding together, metal and non-metal. Metal and non-metal. Metal will always be first. It's going to be an ionic bond. Metal will always be positively charged, and the second one, the non-metal, will be negatively charged. The other thing, covalent bond. These are when electrons, I'm just going to shorthand that, are shared. And this happens when you have two nonmetals. So, for the case of, there's lots of cases. I don't want to get too far into those examples of how these form, because that can get a little confusing at this point in the game. But if you know that if you have two nonmetals, that forms a covalent bond and they share electrons, and you know that an ionic bond is a metal and a nonmetal, and they the first one gives the second one actually an electron or two possibly, and that's ionic, then we'll be good to go. And let's look at some examples right here. Just really quickly, I'm just going to look at this first box. Barium chloride, is it ionic or covalent? Well, this is a metal. Barium's a metal because it's in family 2. Chlorine's a non-metal, so this is going to be an ionic bond. Carbon dioxide. Carbon is a non-metal, and you see dioxide, you think, well, what is that? That's actually oxygen. That is going to be a non-metal, so that's your covalent bond. Magnesium oxide. Magnesium is a metal because it is in family 2. Oxide, remember that's oxygen, that's your non-metal, and that is ionic. Aluminum, aluminum's a metal. Fluoride, that comes from fluorine. That is a nonmetal. So metal, nonmetal. This is going to be ionic. Nitrogen tribromide. So let's get our elements out of here. Nitrogen and bromine. Nitrogen's a nonmetal, bromine is a nonmetal. That's going to be covalent. Chromium fluoride. Chromium is a metal. I keep putting the symbols instead of if it's a metal or not. Fluorine is a non-metal, so this is ionic. Potassium is a metal. I almost did it again. Oxygen is a non-metal, so that's covalent. I mean, sorry. I need to go home. That's ionic. All right. So every time that we have a metal and a nonmetal, we have an ionic bond. Every time we have two nonmetals, we have a covalent bond. And that's that. And you think about the characteristics that are metallic, and then one of the videos, I think it's the last video that I listed, he was showing you all the different characteristics of each type of compound. So if you haven't watched that, go watch that one. But the characteristics I talk about, being good conductors. If it has a metal in it, it's going to be a good conductor. If it's two nonmetals, guess what? It's not going to be a good conductor. Conductor means that it can, send heat or electricity through it. Being soluble in water, being hard and brittle, low points, melting points and boiling points, high melting points and boiling points. So go check out that video that lists all those characteristics, and you should be good to go.